welcome back. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Let the room go quiet. Let your body grow heavy and warm. There's nothing to figure out tonight, nowhere to be. Just listen and let your mind drift out past the edge of the map. Tonight, I want to tell you about places that don't exist. Islands that sailors saw with their own eyes. Islands that lived on the great maps of the world for hundreds of years. Islands that were drawn and named and sailed toward, and were never ever really there. Imagine the world 400 or 500 years ago. The map of the ocean was not a finished thing. It was a work in progress, a vast, half-empty page with great blank spaces where no one had ever been. And into those blank spaces, map makers placed what they were told. A captain returned from a long voyage and said, "I saw land here to the west." And the map maker, sitting in a quiet room far from any sea, took up his pen and drew it. He had no way to check. He could only trust. And so, slowly, the maps filled up, partly with real coastlines and partly with dreams. There was one island called High Brazil. It was said to lie off the west coast of Ireland, out in the gray Atlantic, hidden in mist. On most days, it could not be seen at all, but once every 7 years, the stories said, the fog would part, and there it would be, a perfect circle of green land, ringed by cloud. High Brazil appeared on serious maps of the world for nearly 500 years. Sailors set out to find it. Some came back swearing they had seen its shores, and yet, when at last the ocean was charted, carefully, completely, there was nothing there, only deep water and waves and gray horizon. The island had never existed, and still, for 5 centuries, it waited on the maps, a place that was real on paper and nowhere else. How does this happen? How do so many honest sailors come to see land that isn't there? Sometimes it was the light. Out on a calm, cold sea, the air itself can bend and lift the image of something far over the horizon, a distant coastline, an iceberg, a low bank of cloud, and hang it in the air, shimmering like a mirage in the desert. A sailor would see a shape on the water that looked for all the world like solid land. He would write it down, and the land would sail away with him into the maps and into history. Sometimes it was fog, thick and gray, that took on the shape of cliffs. Sometimes a low island of clouds sitting on the horizon. Sometimes a great raft of floating pumice from a far-off volcano drifting like a pale shore. And sometimes it was simply a tired mind, after months at sea, seeing what it most longed to see. Land, rest, an end to the endless water. And once an island was on a map, it was very hard to remove, because the next map maker would copy the last one, and the next would copy him. No one wished to be the one to erase a place. What if it were real, and a ship sailed by, expecting safe harbor, and found only open sea? So the Phantom Islands were passed gently down the centuries, from map to map, from hand to hand, like a rumor no one was willing to be the first to doubt. There was a long, thin island called Friesland, drawn in the cold northern ocean, that fooled the world's finest map makers for 100 years. There was an island of demons, where sailors believed they heard wailing voices on the wind. There were whole chains of islands in the Pacific that brave captains searched for and never found. You might think this is all very long ago, that with our modern ships, our instruments, our careful science, the Phantom Islands have surely all been swept away. But here is the strangest part of all. There was an island called Sandy Island in the South Pacific, between Australia and New Caledonia. It sat there on the charts, calmly, for more than a century. It was printed in atlases. In modern times, it appeared on digital maps of the world, a small, dark shape in the bright blue sea that anyone could look up and see. And then, not very long ago, a scientific ship sailed straight to the spot where Sandy Island was supposed to be and found nothing, no sand, no shore, no island at all, just deep, dark water, more than a kilometer down. They had sailed across a place that for 100 years the whole world had agreed was land. So they did something rather wonderful. They undiscovered it. They wrote it off the map at last, and Sandy Island slipped quietly back into the sea it had never truly risen from. I find something gentle in all of this. We like to think of a map as a hard, certain thing, a record of exactly what is real. But for most of human history, a map was something softer than that. It was part record and part hope, part of what we had found and part of what we wished to find. The blank spaces frightened us, and so we filled them, sometimes with truth, and sometimes with islands made of fog and longing, and maybe that's a very human thing to do. To look out at the great unknown, and rather than leave it empty, to draw something there. To say, surely, out past all this dark water, there is land. There is somewhere to arrive. So now, let the maps go soft in your mind. Let the ink blur and the coastlines drift, and the names of all those islands fade gently into mist. You don't need to find anything tonight. There's no horizon to reach, no harbor to make. You can let the ship slow and the sails fall still and the sea grow calm and wide all around you. Just drift now on quiet water under a sky full of stars. The fog is soft, the waves are slow, and somewhere out there, just past the edge of seeing, the phantom islands are waiting, green and gentle and never quite real, for no one to ever arrive. Let go and sleep.